Hi, Donna. Thank you so much for joining us. You and we've been friends on Facebook for a while, but we've never actually met. It's so nice to meet you.
Thank you. It's nice to meet you too.
Okay. So while we're waiting for Kristi, you are the HR manager, a senior HR manager for a nonprofit.
I am. It's a large nonprofit that runs the Head Start and Early Head Start programs for Tulsa County. We have 600 plus employees.
Wow. And how long have you been doing HR?
So almost 30 years. I started in 1992. And I also have a ministry, and it's called 3 to the Third. And it's an organization that I started, a networking organization to connect individuals to resources to help them with social, emotional, and economic challenges they're dealing with.
Wow. That's, you need to get together with Sherry Donahue Brown. She works with people with mental disabilities.
Is she one that you interviewed yesterday?
Yeah, she's one of the ones I interviewed yesterday. She's phenomenal.
Yes, I love some of the things that she said. And I think she was one that said she actually had to memorize their emergency plan just in case the systems went down.
Yeah, well, I hope there's a little bit better way than having to memorize the whole thing.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I'll just print mine on paper. That's my plan.
Print it on paper
my
and put it
backup
on
plan.
the cloud, and yes, that way you can have it handy. Hi, Kristi.
I am so embarrassed.
Why?
It's unthinkable.
There's no reason for you to be embarrassed.
Girl, I took a wrong turn on my neighborhood walk and ended up going somewhere I couldn't get out of. And then all of a sudden I'm like, I was supposed to be home 10 minutes ago. Anyway.
I was putting your names up, but it's covering your face. I'm taking it back down again.
Here, I'll just get taller. I like getting taller.
I'm so glad you ladies are coming on board with me and talking about this, because as the pandemic has shown, jobs and businesses and employers and employees and everybody has had to either pivot or redesign what they're doing or start something brand new, right, just completely brand new during the last year and a half. And so I think this is a really important conversation to have about when there is disasters and when there is a crisis going on. I think one of the most important parts is being resilient. And I think you ladies can help us to understand how important that is. Donna, let's talk with you, because you work with businesses as well as individuals, right?
Yes. So my primary job as an senior HR manager for the nonprofit organization is employee relations. So we work very closely with our managers and directors to help them with their employees. Now, for the last year, a little over a year, because of the COVID pandemic, our main focus and our priority has been responding to COVID exposures and positive cases and contact tracing with employees and putting employees on quarantine. So I have an employee on my team that almost 100% of her day for almost a year was dealing with COVID responses.
Wow. I think it's really important that we understand, because that's huge. I mean, if you have to bring on one whole person to just handle that, that is enormous. And so what is some good advice that you could give to employers when whether it's a pandemic or whether it's a family crisis? What is some good advice you could give to the employers that have something like that going on with one of their employees?
You know, I think what we did and what I have experienced myself is just coming together with a group, find the people that are willing and able to have conversations and plan together. So we developed an emergency response team, and we have a collaborative services team that includes our IT department, operations, directors from each department, HR, of course. HR ended up being the first responders to COVID cases. And so we met weekly. In the beginning, we actually met daily because, you know, it was an emergency. It felt like a disaster to a lot of our employees. They had family members that were sick. They were uncertain about their job. They were uncertain about their pay. They were scared. Their spouses were losing jobs. And so not only did we have to respond to how we were going to operate working remotely and figure out what that was going to look like, we had to also respond to people that were dealing with pandemic-related crises in their life. So it really made a difference having a committee and putting our heads together and planning together and developing protocols. So when we were allowed to go back into our physical work environment, we knew how we were going to do that to keep each other safe.
How did you put your team together? How did you choose the people that are going to be on the team?
So we started with HR, and then we knew IT had to be IT was a critical part of that. Because IT is the one that set us up to be able to work from home, made sure our systems were available to us, made sure that we had the ability and knowledge to be able to start working from the cloud, and making sure that we had the equipment that we need to be able to work effectively from home. So, we became a remote work environment overnight, literally, because we never stopped working. Our operations team needed to be involved because we knew when we got back to our physical work facility, we needed somebody to be able to clean those work environments when there was some on-site exposure. So when we had an employee that tested positive that was in the workplace, we needed a team that was ready to go in there and clean or have the facility cleaned. Then we also needed directors from each department, because they needed to be aware of what the new protocols and involved in what the protocols would be as we started trickling back into the workplace. And that was June. So we all went out in mid-March, as you all remember, around spring break, which is my birthday. And we all started trickling back slowly in June. It wasn't 100%, because we needed to go in slowly and make sure that there wasn't just a ton of exposures. We had a lot of employees on quarantine in the beginning. Right now, we're very fortunate. We're down to only 16 employees on quarantine. At our peak, we had 40 to 50 people out on quarantine.
Wow, that had to really affect your business.
It did. We had to close classrooms, and we were only 50%. We only brought 50% back of the children back in June for a summer program. And then because we had so many people out on quarantine, it impacted staffing and our ability to really support our families and children. We ended up closing again for a couple of months to regroup and figure out how we were going to go back in and try to really kind of manage the social distancing need. What were we going to do? You can't social distance from children, right? You work with children, you can't social distance from them. So just making sure the mask wearing was happening, and also figuring out a way to address individual classroom exposures without closing the entire school. So we had to kind of just reassess what we were doing and do it a little bit differently the next time we went back.
Well, one thing that I really admire with so many businesses, and I deal a lot with the real estate industry, and how everybody became so innovative. I think, I always talk about the gift and the opportunity, and it's totally amazing to me to see how quickly people did pivot and work from home, and how quickly things were up and operating, and people were trying to do and react. And especially if you're dealing with children like what you are, that's an enormous undertaking, to say the least. So Kristi, you've been a corporate trainer for a long time, and you're an author and a writer, and you have your One Moment Wisers that you do. What is some good advice that you can give for people that maybe are looking for a new job, or what should they be doing if they've lost a job?
Well, and if you don't mind, let me go back in time a little bit to help people realize the importance of preparing ahead of time, right? So I was a call center employee at a huge call center with people who had been there 10, 20, 30 years. And then we started having town hall meetings where management would give kind of hollow answers to increasingly worried questions. And then one day, the place was a ghost town. And I would walk through these dark rows to get to the one lamplit cubicle where somebody was still working. And I realized at that time that it didn't matter how big the company was, how long it had been around. You can't rely on a company to always provide for you. And so I started praying. I don't do worry. I figure God is my provider. And wherever I am, if I'm asking him to guide me, then I'm in a place where he's going to guide me and provide for me. And so I just started praying. I said, Lord, someday if I get laid off, I want to be ready to write for a living. And I started scheduling writing days with my vacation time, with my holidays. I would schedule writing days and discovering my shortcomings, the things that I needed to work on. Like I had always been in customer service, responding to people's needs and questions. I didn't know what to do when I had to make my own plans and execute them, when I had to sit in front of a blank page and create something nobody was asking me to create. And so that began a process for me of, following a passion and developing skills that ended up opening doors for me. As more layoffs happened, I became a trainer because I had been, learning how to manage my own time doing writing. And I had also been, managing a band and performing. And so I had honed some skills that got me a job as a trainer. And when I thought about going back to school to get a degree for the job I was already doing, I prayed about it, and God said, no, keep doing what you're doing. And I ended up, co-hosting a conference, co-creating a conference, and doing some speaking engagements, starting the books, writing my own courses, and through it all, following what I'm actually passionate about in my off time has continued to give me skills that help me in my, my full-time job. And when last year happened, and one day my students mutinied, and it was March of 2020, and they said, we aren't comfortable coming to the office. Well, at that point, I had already begun helping to redesign our curriculum for remote learning to keep it engaging for our employees. I even presented a workshop to our global partners on how to do remote learning, including some templates that would help students stay engaged and help us, make sure everybody was paying attention. Because I had in my own life, in my own, personal stuff, already developed some remote courses and done remote workshops. And I'd gotten a certification because I noticed that the corporations were heading that direction, even without knowing what was going to happen last March. So one of the things that I would encourage people the most to do is don't just spend your off time watching TV or looking at your phone. Spend your off time doing something that you really care about. And then make sure you correlate what you're learning, what that off time passion is teaching you, with what your employer is looking for, so that you can put that stuff on your resume and speak to it intelligently in an interview. And so that's one of the biggest things. And then two, when I went through, there was a layoff, but they also transitioned about half of us to another company. It kind of hurt at first. I didn't really feel like I was going to like the new company, but I decided to help the new company with the skills that I had. And so embracing where you are and doing your best can open doors for you, either where you are or with the people you're meeting. And stay in touch with those people. LinkedIn is a wonderful resource to stay in touch with people who you've worked with, who have seen your work ethic, and who may have moved on to other companies or other places. So when things happen and you've got your passion going, which is building your skills, and you're continuing to build your resume with that, and you've got your network growing, and people have seen you do a good job where you are, then you can survive this stuff. I've been through several layoffs and have yet to be laid off, which is not me bragging. I think it's just God knows where he wants me. but it does feel good. And I do know that those things in particular have helped me to grow at my job and also in my own business.
You said so many wonderful things there, because I'm a true believer that when you're living your passion, things just kind of start showing up. And if you are at a job and you're not really liking where exactly you are with that job, if you just start, what is your passion, and how can you maneuver to get into a position where you are, it is part of your passion. Sometimes, like you're a wonderful writer, and I love your 1 minute wiser events. But I think you looked at it as your passion. And so because of that, the things that are showing up to you on your business world are helping you. You're actually helping each other. Your career is helping your business, and vice versa. And I think when you're doing your passion, I think that's critically important. And so many times when we get laid off, or our job ends, or our business ends, like it has with the pandemic, we're in a state of panic. We're in a state of fear. We're in a state of anxiety, and we need to be able to get beyond that. And you've heard me talk about the fact that my husband, when he passed away, I knew my old life was gone, and it took time. It took time, and me being still to be able to figure out what it is that I really wanted to do. And when I decided that I wanted to help others, and that was as broad as it was, I wanted to help others, then things started showing up to help guide me into the direction of how I was going to do that. So I think if we just get clear with that, just like you have, get clear with where you're going to go and what you want to do, and then all of a sudden, little things, little people, little resources, different things start showing up. And I know that certainly has happened to you. Donna, when you are working with your schools, and I'm sure you're working with teachers and all kinds of stuff, and parents and that, what is one of the things you see that you feel might that you can make a difference with them? What are the tools that you maybe give them to help them get through something?
We're seeing a lot of people as they started returning to full-time on-site work, just dealing with challenges that are new, with emotions and with fears that are new. I have seen people that have always been super strong, really didn't seem like they had a fear or a care in the world, come back, and all of a sudden, look, you can see stress that I never saw before. I can see emotions that I never saw before. So we as an organization have been super proactive over the last year to continuously send out resources and develop and create new resources and benefits to help our employees deal with the stresses. They're allowed during the workday to go on to online courses to help them deal with stresses. We have an employee assistance program. We also have a new program that helps people that are in crisis, that have had a family crisis, like if they have a house fire or something like that, and they need financial resources. So something that you said, Coni, kind of struck a nerve with me last night when you were interviewing. You were talking about whether we're prepared and able to respond to those natural disasters and crises when they happen. And I thought, I'm not that frontline person, that responsive person. I'm the one that comes in after. My team and I are the ones that are working with people that are dealing with the aftermath of this crisis, and just helping them maneuver through those feelings. And sometimes it challenges their performance. Sometimes their performance is impacted. Sometimes their relationships are impacted. Sometimes they don't even know what's causing it. But there's a difference after the pandemic. And so that's our job, is to come alongside our managers and to help them deal with those issues. And they're not new. There have always been things to work with and to come alongside our managers and our employees with, whether it's performance related or relationships. It's just different now. And it's noticeably different. So we've just, as an organization, we're providing a lot more resources than we ever have for emotional well-being and mental health.
Kristi, I'm sure you're seeing a lot of that too in what you're doing, and one of the things that you do with your 1 Minute Wiser and your books and everything is when you mentioned sitting down and writing. I think writing is one of the best ways to figure out who we are now. What is this? What is this? What is the new norm? What does that look like? Tell everybody a little bit about what you do.
Sure. So with 1 Moment Wiser, I do a daily devotional video 4 days a week. And it's usually short. This year it's been a little longer because I felt like people needed to pray together. This is just a year for, after last year's division, this is a year for people to come together and pray. And so this year's videos are a little bit longer, but I do that daily devotional video, just kind of reset us to remember, God actually has our good in his hands. And to also, I pull in examples from, my students, examples from life, ways that we can, things that we can all relate to, and talk about ways we can communicate better and we can live in a little bit more peace. I actually just this week posted a refrigerator magnet on ways to deal with anxiety, to stop that anxiety's landslide, because that is something, we start to get into a negative spiral and then, we're just snowballing down. And so, little things that help us. I also, what I'm really loving right now is I write devotional books and I help people put their own stories into words so that they can join me in the devotional book or write their own things. And so I have a podcast where I interview people and they tell their stories, and then we proceed from there. Some of them already have books out, and others, want to join me in a project. And then I've got a couple of courses, one for people to write books, but another for people to create their own workshops. And I think, honestly, I'm sorry, I'm talking like on and on, but I'm thinking, for those people who have skills that they want to get recognized, they want to get a little bit, level up to that expert level, by sharing their expertise. And just like you said, Coni, bring value to others. I put out a course last year called Successful Workshops Are Sassy, and it uses the, tried and true learning design principles to walk somebody step by step through creating a workshop that will demonstrate their expertise, but also get other people starting to get excited about that skill and practicing whatever skill they're trying to share. So that's, if you would need a place to start with getting your passion started, getting your resume going, then starting with a skill you already have and helping others get it is a good place to start.
I think that's absolutely brilliant advice. And I think with everything that we've went through, and not just the pandemic last year, but also all the natural disasters, and so many people went through so much last year, I think it's really important, when you write your own story, all of a sudden you start seeing yourself in a different light. You start seeing yourself in, I made it through that. And this is something that I can share with other people that are maybe going through with something similar. I think you're going to see a lot of new books and a lot of new things come out over the pandemic. I think and it's going to be words that need to be spoken because, we were warned that we were going to have a pandemic for years and years and years and years and years, and nobody believed it. Nobody paid attention. I think the real awareness now is that when you don't think you're going to go through it, it's not going to happen to me, right?
Oh, right.
Well, we've all found out it can happen to us. And I think your advice, writing something down to, first of all, get it out of you.
Mm-hmm.
If it's something that is upsetting you or something you're feeling that is bringing you depression or that is giving you fear and anxiety, writing it down. And if it's really, really bad, burn it. Just burn it and help to get rid of it. In my
I
retreats,
don't know.
what
I
I
keep
do,
everything so that I can see where I've been, and that helps me because I'm like, oh, I'm not still there. But anyway,
when I do my retreats, when I'm doing them here in the States, I go to Goodwill and I get dishes, and I have a great big trash can, and anything that is inside of anybody that they want to get rid of, they write it on the plate, and then they read it as they're standing over the trash can, and I've got rocks and stuff in the bottom, so they're reading what it is that they're wanting to get rid of, and then they have to crash it if it doesn't break, they have to do it over again. When I'm
brilliant.
in Mexico, I do the same thing on sand dollars. I have them write what they want to get rid of on the sand dollars, and then we throw them out to the ocean. So can you imagine somebody walking along the beach and all of a sudden there's all these sand dollars with all these things on it? But 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 writing something down, and if it's something that you're progressing with, like what you're doing, then by all means make sure you keep that and you look at it. I mean, those are successes that you have. Like you should write down 3 successes every single day. And if you're looking for a job or you're going through something at work or you're trying some kind of a crisis, writing, because big successes all start with itsy bitsy successes. Like the very first thing you wrote, Kristi, was the beginning, right?
Yep. But when I got stuck, I did just what you said. And in fact, looking back, I'm wondering if it was you that suggested it. Because, I did at one point get a little stuck in, and actually more than one point, where I just didn't feel like doing anything. But I would write down, it'd end the day in frustration. Oh, I didn't do anything, and now I feel like a loser. And, I would just write down 3 things that I was either grateful for, or that I was grateful for that I did. And that was the most important thing. What did I do? Even if it was 5 minutes towards a goal, it was 5 minutes towards a goal. And that kept me wanting to have something to write about and then get me through those slumps. So that is fantastic advice, Coni.
Well, we're drawing into our group, and I wanted to have you each have an opportunity to tell us a little bit about your organization, Donna, that you have.
3 to the Third is a networking organization. We formed it to connect people to Christ-centered resources to help them with social, emotional, and economic challenges they're dealing with. So we're in the process of forming a pilot group of a few churches that is going to help us assess a database that we're putting together with all of those resources. So as we've been thinking about disasters and having that database on the cloud accessible to these churches that are part of it, I was also thinking we also want to keep a printed version of that on a regular basis, just in case. You really got me to thinking, Coni, about what we're going to do when we need to go find all those resources in a disaster. What if the cloud goes down? I don't know. So I always believe in having that printed backup as well. So anyway, it's just to help people that are dealing with difficult situations in their lives and to introduce them to people that are going to show them Christ's love and help them with that inner healing that they need.
So how does somebody reach out to you?
They can reach me through 3 to the Third at cox.net or Donna C. Branch at cox.net. Okay. And yeah.
That's awesome. Awesome. Thank you, Donna. Kristi, how do they reach out to you?
So you can find me on social media at the number 1 Moment Wiser, MOMENTWISER. Your favorite podcast source, just find me there too at 1 Moment Wiser, or just go straight to onemomentwiser.com. And if you have a story, I'd love to hear it. Love hearing people's stories.
She does a great job of putting people's stories together into really wonderful books. So if you have a story, especially from this last year and a half, I'm sure she would love to hear from you and share it. So, well, ladies, we're almost out of time. One last word, either one of you want to share, Kristi?
Coni, I so appreciate what you're doing and your goal of equipping 3 million people to be prepared for the unexpected, the unthinkable is, I love that. And I know that if anybody can do it, you can, because you know your stuff. So thank you.
Thank you, Kristi. Thank you, sir. Donna, anything else you want to share?
Coni, I've learned so much over the last couple of days. Thank you so much for putting this on and really making us think about being prepared. I'm going to get my tennis shoes in my office so I'm not stuck with high heels if an earthquake happens in my office building. I thought about that the other day. And then just to piggyback on what you said earlier, a friend of mine does a to-done list. So we all have those to-do lists, but she does a to-done list to celebrate the day.
I love that.
Yes.
I love that. All right. Well, both of you, thank you so much for your insights and thank you for the information. Please reach out to these ladies. They have great information if it's around a job or a career or a disaster, or you just want to be a part of one of Kristi's books. So, or if you need resources, reach out to Donna. So thank you, ladies, so much for being a part of this. And I cannot wait to get to talk to you some more.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.